I was in the middle of tinkering with my latest project, the kind of thing that only a human with too much free time would take on. My tool, a monstrous piece of engineering that looked like it had been stolen from a sci-fi movie set, sat gleaming on the table. Big, shiny, undeniably impressive. I was admiring it when the apartment door slid open faster than expected. Zalara, my alien roommate, barged in like she owned the place, which in fairness she kind of did. Her eyes, or what passed for eyes on her species, widened in a way that suggested both awe and danger. "Is that yours?" she asked, her voice quivering with something that sounded suspiciously like excitement. Her antennae twitched uncontrollably, which was her version of a blush, I assumed. I froze mid-twist, wrench in hand, wondering if I had accidentally crossed some interstellar boundary with my display. "Yes. It's mine. Big tool, big human pride," I said, trying to sound casual while wondering if she was about to swoop down and claim it like some kind of predatory collector. Zalara circled the table, inspecting it with the precision of a scientist and the obsession of someone who had just discovered an ancient artifact. "You humans, you think this is normal?" she murmured, barely above a whisper, but her tone carried all the implication of someone who had just stumbled upon a treasure trove. Her eyes darted back and forth, taking in every curve and mechanical detail. "It's immense. I can't believe you handle it every day without losing your mind." "Handle it?" I repeated, heat creeping into my ears. "I mean, yes, but it's a tool. For repairs. Practical stuff." I tried to emphasize practicality, but Zalara was not convinced. She leaned closer, her hands hovering as if to measure its magnitude. "If I didn't know better, I'd say you humans are excessively proud of these things." I guess we are," I admitted, feeling a mix of mortification and a strange, guilty pride. I'd never seen anyone react to a simple human tool like this before, and Zalara's fascination bordered on reverence. Her gaze flicked between me and the tool in a way that made my stomach tighten. She leaned back, antennae twitching furiously. "Proud indeed. I may have to replicate this. We can't have a human owning the largest implement without my species attempting to match it." Her words were loaded, suggestive, and undeniably teasing. I swallowed hard, realizing just how dangerously competitive my roommate could be when aroused by tools. "You mean, you're going to try to build something?" I asked cautiously, my voice tinged with both apprehension and curiosity. "Here? In the apartment?" "Yes," she said, a smirk playing on her lips. "If humans can boast of size, I shall attempt an equivalent. I cannot let your species feel superior in such matters. It's unacceptable." I groaned inwardly. I should have known that anything involving Zalara and pride would end catastrophically. The first thing she did was start measuring, sketching, and plotting, her alien mind moving at lightning speed, already thinking of ways to outdo me. And somehow, in the midst of this madness, I felt a bizarre flutter in my chest. It was mortifying. It was thrilling. It was entirely absurd. And I knew, deep down, that my life had just taken a turn from mundane human tinkering to something dangerously, hilariously adult. Zalara was not just competitive, she was relentless, and my big tool had just become the epicenter of her obsession. I sighed, gripping my own tool like a lifeline. "This is going to be a disaster," I muttered, though part of me couldn't wait to see exactly how insane things would get. And somehow, I already knew I wasn't ready for the chaos about to unfold. By morning, the apartment had transformed into what could only be described as a science lab run by someone who had watched too many human pornographic engineering videos. Zalara was already at her workstation, tools and alien gadgets strewn around like a miniature apocalypse. Her antennae quivered with barely contained excitement, and she didn't even look at me before she began. "I've designed the Long Extender 3000, she announced proudly, holding a blueprint that looked suspiciously like a giant version of my tool, but with glowing alien parts, buttons I didn't understand, and a strange hum that set my nerves on edge. "If humans pride themselves on size, then this creation will surpass it. By far." I took a step back, eyeing the contraption with a mixture of fear and incredulity. "You're building that here?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but my voice cracked. "In the apartment?" "Yes," she replied without hesitation. "I need to experience firsthand how it performs. I cannot rely on theory alone." Her eyes gleamed in a way that suggested performance had an entirely different connotation in her alien mind. I groaned. "Zalara, do you understand that the last time you tried one of your experiments, the kitchen exploded, the living room turned into a zero-gravity chamber, and I nearly lost my lunch, permanently?" Her laugh was a melodic, dangerous trill. "And yet you survived. Clearly, your human resilience is impressive. That makes this experiment even more tantalizing." She stepped closer, her hands hovering near the machine as if she wanted to caress it. I swallowed hard, my embarrassment spiking. Before I could protest, she pressed a series of buttons. The machine hummed to life, vibrating with a power that made the entire apartment tremble. Sparks flew. Small explosions of alien energy sent nearby objects flying. My tool clattered to the floor. I scrambled to catch it, but Zalara's gaze never left the long extender 3000. "Does it feel right?" she asked, her tone dripping with both curiosity and suggestion. I bit my lip, realizing that every word she said could be taken at least 3 ways. "Right. Yeah, fine. Feels mechanical," I muttered, trying to remain professional. She raised an eyebrow, clearly amused at my struggle. By now, the apartment looked like a war zone. Alien sparks were embedded in the walls, a small puddle of unknown substance pulled near the couch, and my poor tool was lying in a crater. Zalara was dancing around her creation, adjusting controls, flipping levers, all while making commentary that was almost sexual in nature. Yes, increase the torque, that's it. Perfection. Human pride cannot compare." I covered my face with my hands. "Why do I feel like I'm in a very bad sci-fi porno right now?" Zalara twirled, clearly pleased with herself. "Because, dear human, you are. And your big tool is the star." She winked, antennae twitching in unrestrained delight. I felt my face heat up as she continued her experiments, each adjustment louder, more intense, and increasingly chaotic. And yet, somewhere in the madness, a bizarre tension began to build between us. Mortifying as it was, I couldn't deny the thrill of sharing this ridiculous, risque experience with someone so otherworldly and unapologetically competitive. Every mishap, every double entendre, every accidental spark and hum added layers to this bizarre dance we were performing together. By the time the long extender 3000 finally sputtered to a halt, the apartment was a disaster zone. I leaned against the wall, panting, trying to process what had just happened. Zalara stood triumphant over her creation, looking equal parts proud and mischievous. "Not perfect," she admitted, "but promising. I think I may need more practice." I groaned. "More practice? In my apartment? With my tools? You are insane." "And yet," she replied with a playful smirk, "you love it." I rolled my eyes, but somewhere deep inside I knew she was right. Zalara wasn't content with apartment-level chaos. Oh no, apparently, the long extender 3000 needed to be tested in public. "A true tool must be appreciated beyond these 4 walls," she declared, practically bouncing with excitement. I groaned, already regretting life choices that led to living with a competitive alien obsessed with my big tool. "I'm not carrying this thing down the street," I said, trying to sound rational. "People will see. They'll freak out. There could be legal issues. Or fines. Or, I don't know, intergalactic police intervention." She tilted her head, antennae quivering. "All the better. Witnesses are essential. The tool, after all, deserves admiration." Her grin suggested that admiration, in her mind, came with very adult connotations. I looked at the glowing, humming monstrosity she'd cobbled together, realizing that even moving it would be a feat requiring the strength of 3 humans, or the kind of alien luck I didn't want to tempt. Before I could argue further, she grabbed the contraption with alarming strength, dragging it to the elevator. Come, she commanded. The world must know. As soon as we hit the lobby, the chaos began. The elevator doors opened, and our neighbors froze mid-step. One elderly man dropped his groceries in shock. A delivery droid tried to retreat but got caught in the whirring cables of Zalara's device. I muttered under my breath, "This is officially a public disaster." Zalara, however, was in her element. "Observe the human reactions," she whispered gleefully. "They cannot resist the grandeur." She adjusted a lever, and the machine hummed louder, vibrating in a way that made nearby phones ping with emergency notifications. Sparks shot out like tiny fireworks. People gasped, some laughing, some shielding themselves, while I dashed around apologizing. "Zalara! This is insane!" I shouted, narrowly dodging a small explosion that launched a flower pot across the lobby. "You're going to get us evicted! Or arrested! Or worse!" Her antennae twitched in delight. "Or all three! What fun would restraint be?" She turned toward me, her voice low and teasing. "And admit it, you love the attention. You humans secretly enjoy flaunting your tools." I couldn't help but groan, partly in exasperation, partly because the words carried that uncomfortable truth she always managed to tease out of me. "This is not flaunting. This is catastrophic public indecency." I tried to keep a straight face while dodging a flying coffee cup. By the time we reached the park, the spectacle had grown. Curious humans gawked from benches, dogs barked at the humming monstrosity, and a group of alien tourists started taking holophotos. Zalara adjusted the machine again, humming something that sounded suspiciously like a flirtatious tune. Sparks flew, a pigeon narrowly escaped, and I realized that trying to manage this situation alone was hopeless. She leaned close, her breath brushing my ear. "Isn't it thrilling?" she whispered. "The thrill of size, power, admiration, and human embarrassment." Her hand hovered near my shoulder, playful, suggestive. I groaned, realizing there was no separating adult tension from public spectacle anymore. Then disaster struck. A misaligned lever shot the top of the long Extender 3000 into the air like a rocket, spinning and wobbling precariously. A group of humans dove out of the way, some screaming, while Zalara held onto the base, laughing maniacally. I sprinted forward, heart in my throat, and grabbed the nearest cable to steady it. Sparks rained down, people screamed, and my life flashed before me. Finally, the machine toppled with a thunderous crash into a fountain. Water exploded everywhere. My hair was soaked, my pride soaked even more, and Zalara sat atop the wreckage, drenched but grinning like a victorious child. "Not perfect," she admitted, water dripping from her antennae. "But impressive, wouldn't you say?" I could only collapse next to her, dripping wet, exhausted, humiliated, and oddly exhilarated. "Impressive, disaster, maybe," I muttered, shaking my head. Her laugh rang out, triumphant, flirtatious, and entirely unrepentant. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "we'll perfect it." I groaned again, realizing full well that my life had officially turned into a never-ending adult comedy nightmare, with Sparks, tools, and a very competitive alien roommate. By the time we returned to the apartment, the long Extender 3000 looked more like a melted science project than the marvel of engineering Zalara had envisioned. Sparks still hissed intermittently, alien slime dripped from its edges, and the smell of ozone hung heavy in the air. I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted, wet, and still mortified from our public escapade. Zalara, on the other hand, looked like she just won an intergalactic trophy. Her antennae twitched in victory, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "Not perfect," she admitted, brushing a stray puddle of water off her shoulder. "But promising. You must admit, human, there's something thrilling about a tool of such magnitude." I groaned, running a hand through my soaked hair. "Magnitude? That thing nearly got us arrested, set half the city park on fire, and humiliated me in front of at least 36 witnesses. I think the word you're looking for is catastrophe." She laughed, a sound that was part musical trill, part seductive challenge. "Catastrophe, yes, but also memorable. And isn't that the point of sharing life together? Her eyes flicked to mine, antennae quivering in a way that was simultaneously teasing and oddly tender. I couldn't help but smirk, despite my exhaustion. Living with Zilara was chaos incarnate, but there was a twisted thrill in our constant banter, the reckless flirting, and the way she pushed boundaries with the confidence of someone who had never known restraint. I reached over, nudging her shoulder. You do realize this means I'm never leaving the apartment without locking all the doors, right? And I do realize, she said, grinning. That doesn't stop you from enjoying my assistance. Her words dripped with double meaning, and I felt a blush creep up despite myself. We spent the next hour surveying the wreckage, picking up alien goo and human tools alike, trading sarcastic remarks and flirty insults. Next time, I muttered, holding a smoking piece of wiring. We keep the experiments small. Maybe something manageable. Like a pen or a toothbrush. Zilara raised an eyebrow. Manageable, perhaps. But you humans are always so obsessed with size, aren't you? And I, of course, must honor that. She smirked, brushing her hand across my shoulder in a way that was entirely unnecessary, entirely intentional, and entirely distracting. I sighed, shaking my head. You are insane. And yet, somehow, I can't stay mad at you. You're ridiculously persuasive. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to that low, teasing tone that always made my stomach twist. Persuasive? Or irresistible? Perhaps you humans just like a challenge, a very large, very dangerous, very entertaining challenge. I groaned, but the corner of my mouth twitched with a reluctant smile. Yes, I was mortified. Yes, the apartment looked like a post-apocalyptic disaster zone. And yes, the alien sitting next to me had just redefined every adult joke, double entendre, and darkly humorous scenario I'd ever imagined. But there was something intoxicating about sharing this insanity with her, laughing, teasing, flirting, surviving together. As I leaned back, wiping a stray spark of alien residue from my arm, I noticed her fiddling with a small device tucked under the table. What's that? I asked warily, already knowing the answer. Oh, just a little something to prepare for tomorrow, she said with a wink. We might need to refine our approach. I groaned, throwing my head back onto the couch. Refine our approach? Refine. Zilara, I swear. Her laughter echoed through the apartment, light, musical, and dangerously victorious. Sure, just relax. After all, you love the chaos, the risk, and me. Admit it. I couldn't help but grin despite myself. Yes, I loved the chaos. Yes, I loved the flirting, the experiments, the ridiculousness. And yes, I might secretly be looking forward to whatever insane things she would dream up next. Living with a competitive, mischievous, and entirely obsessed alien was exhausting, terrifying, and hilariously erotic in ways I couldn't quite explain. And as Zilara's antennae twitched with satisfaction, I realized one undeniable truth: life with her would never be boring.